Once there was a city, a very, very big city. Its name was Jericho. Jericho had walls, oh, such strong walls. They were tall, so tall they seemed to tickle the clouds. They were wide, so wide that chariots could race on top. No one thought those walls could ever fall down. They were like giant stone arms, hugging the city tight. Inside, the people of Jericho felt safe and snug. They locked their gates. No one can get us, they thought. They were sure, very, very sure. But God had a plan, a special plan for his people. Joshua was God's helper. He was leading God's people, the Israelites. They had been wandering for a long, long time. Now they were near their new home, their forever home that God promised them. But there was a problem, a big, wall-shaped problem. Jericho stood right in their way like a grumpy giant blocking the path. The Israelites looked at Jericho. Their eyes grew wide. Their hearts went thump, thump, thump. How could they ever get past those walls? The walls looked too strong. Too mighty, too impossible. The people felt small, very small, like tiny ants looking up at a giant's boot. Some were scared, their knees knocked together like rattling bones. Some were worried, their faces were long and droopy. "What will we do?" they whispered. "How can we win?" But Joshua, their brave leader, remembered God. He remembered God's promises. God had always helped them. He helped them cross a big sea. He gave them food from the sky. Surely God would help them now. Joshua told the people to be brave, to trust. God saw his people. He saw their worried faces. He saw the big, scary walls of Jericho. But God wasn't worried, not one little bit. God loved his people very much. He always had a plan, a good plan, a wonderful plan. And this plan for Jericho? It was a very surprising plan, a plan that no one would ever guess, not in a million years. It wasn't about fighting with swords, or shooting arrows. It was about listening, and trusting, and doing exactly what God said, even if it sounded a little bit silly. So God spoke to Joshua. He told him the secret plan. It was a very unusual plan. Not a plan for soldiers really, more like a plan for a parade. God said, "Tell the people to walk around the city. Yes, walk around those big, tall walls." Joshua listened very carefully. He must have blinked his eyes. Walk? Just walk? That seemed too easy. Or maybe too strange. But God knew best. God's ways are not always our ways. His plans are higher and wiser, like the stars are higher than the sand. For 6 days you will walk around the city one time each day. The soldiers were to walk, and the priests, God's special helpers, were to walk too. 7 priests would carry 7 trumpets. Not shiny gold trumpets for a party. These were ram's horns, simple, curly horns. And behind the priests, the most important thing of all, the Ark of the Covenant. The special box that held God's promises. It was like God himself was walking with them, leading the way, showing them he was near. And there was another rule, a very important rule. No one must shout, God said. No one must say any word, not a whisper, not a peep, only quiet. Until the day I tell you to shout, then you will shout with all your might. Imagine that, all those people, thousands of people, walking in silence, only the sound of their feet. March, 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 and the sound of the trumpets. Toot, toot, tootle, too. It was a strange way to fight a battle, a very strange way indeed. But it was God's way. Joshua told the people God's plan, every single word. The people listened. Some might have scratched their heads. Some might have looked at each other, puzzled. Walk, be quiet, blow trumpets. This was not how armies usually fought. But they remembered all the amazing things God had done. He parted the Red Sea. He sent bread from heaven. He made water come from a rock. If God said to walk, they would walk. If God said to be quiet, they would be quiet. They would trust, they would obey. So, the very next morning, they began. The sun peeked over the desert hills. The soldiers got ready. The priests lifted the ram's horn trumpets. The special ark, gleaming, was carried with care. Around the city of Jericho they walked. One time, just one time. Their feet made soft sounds on the dusty ground. Shh. The trumpets blew a long, steady note, a holy sound in the quiet air. No one spoke. Not a single word. It was a silent parade. A serious holy parade. Inside Jericho the people watched from the high walls. What were these Israelites doing? Were they playing a game? Were they trying to be sneaky? They saw the soldiers. They saw the priests. They heard the trumpets. But no shouting. No war cries. Just this quiet, strange walking. Round and round their big city. It must have made them nervous. It must have made them wonder. What magic was this? What trick were these desert people trying to play? They didn't understand God's plan, not one little bit. Day 2 came, they did it again. Around the city once, feet marching, trumpets blowing, silence. Day 3 the same, day 4 the same, day 5 the same, day 6 still the same. Every day the people of Jericho watched. Their hearts probably beat a little faster each time. This wasn't a normal attack. This was something different, something mysterious. The silence was heavy. It was like waiting for a big thunderstorm to break. The air was thick with suspense. What would happen next? Everyone waited. The Israelites kept walking. They kept trusting. It wasn't easy to be quiet for so long. It wasn't easy to walk when you wanted to fight. But they did what God said. They put one foot in front of the other. They listened to the trumpets. They knew God was with them. The ark was their reminder. God's presence right there. Their faith was like a little seed growing bigger each day. They believed God's promise. They believed God's strange, wonderful plan would work. They just had to wait and walk. Then came the seventh day. Oh, this day was different, very different. God told Joshua, "Today you will walk around the city 7 times, not once but 7 times. It was a lot of walking. The sun climbed high in the sky. The Israelites walked and walked and walked around and around Jericho. The priests blew their trumpets. Toot toot tootle too. 7 times they circled that big strong city. The people inside Jericho must have been very, very scared now. 7 times. What did it mean? On the 7th time around, as the priests blew a long, loud blast on their trumpets, Joshua gave the signal. He lifted his hands and he shouted, "Now, shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And the people shouted. Oh, what a shout it was. It wasn't just a little yell, it was a giant roar, like the sound of a mighty waterfall, like the sound of 1,000 lions. Every single Israelite shouted with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their might. Their voices rose up to the sky, and then it happened. The ground began to shake. A rumbling sound started deep in the earth. The big, tall, strong walls of Jericho, they started to wobble. They shivered. They cracked. Stones began to fall. Dust flew everywhere like a giant dusty sneeze, and then, with a mighty crash, crash! Boom! The walls, the impossible walls, they tumbled down, they fell flat, all around the city, just like God said they would. It was amazing. It was a miracle. The way into the city was wide open. The Israelites stood there staring, their mouths wide open, their eyes like saucers. The scary walls were gone, just piles of dusty rubble. God had done it. He had kept his promise. His strange plan had worked perfectly. It wasn't their own strength that won the battle. It wasn't their swords or their spears. It was God's power. It was their faith, their trust, their obedience. They learned that day, and we learn it too, that with God, nothing is impossible. When we trust him, even the biggest walls can fall down. What a wonderful God!